Hey guys, it's Miss Madison. Today we're going to be looking at how to write our college application letters, getting a little more in depth, looking at some ideas. So let's get started. Starting off today, I just want to look at how do we hook our readers in. You guys probably have a lot of ideas about this already. So I just want to evaluate different ways to do that. So the difference between saying my difficulty in dealing with my feelings probably all started when my parents started breaking up versus the first thing I remember is my parents arguing in the next room while I was trying to sleep. And do you guys see how like we can totally picture the second one? So don't like talk about it like you want to show us. And I know you've heard this a bazillion times, like show, don't tell, but like it's real. Like for this assignment, you want to really like use that imagery and help us picture what you're talking about. Versus like if you look at this one, the book Divine Comedy is a serious work of literature written by Dante several centuries ago. Like it's good to talk about what you want to read and what you're into reading, but like that's not a great way to say it. Versus something like Dante's Divine Comedy, despite its title, it's not a funny book. And, just kind of introducing with a little more flair. Among my various extracurricular commitments, music has been the most enduring. Versus I've tried to immerse myself in the motions of music. I've formed a bond with music that endures to this day. So just the way you can put things is a little bit more thoughtful, clever, or creative. That's how you want to start. Okay, good. So here's an example of humor. The game begins. Joel stolidly assumes his usual position in right field. Anxiety dominates his emotions. He is forced to stand outside in a field on a hot, sticky day, surrounded by clouds of swarming gnats. He fears that a ball may never be hit to him, and the only thing more fearful than that would be for a ball to be hit to him. His pet peeve on the baseball diamond is the easy pop fly. Joel wishes that people wouldn't include the word easy every time that phrase is used. He could be back in school demonstrating his academic prowess. Yes, school is a place where little Joel could shine. No one could hold a candle to his mastery of multiplication tables. Um, okay, good. So we have here an example of humor. Do you see how they're kind of using like third person to talk about themselves, which is kind of weird, but it also kind of gets that comedy going, and it's just a fun way to think about it. Like he's poking fun at himself, and so he clearly has a sense of humor, and that shows his qualities. These are just some ideas for hooking. So obviously starting inside a moment of the story, this is a really common and really great way to start. If you're just like, instead of describing like, when I was 12, blah, 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 like get us like right into the story. Like just start with like, you're already in it. Like, here we go. So picture the way like a movie would start in the middle of a scene and you're kind of engaged already. So this is an example of that. You could also state a provocative idea in an ordinary way or an ordinary idea in a provocative way. So here we have, if you've never been 6 feet 7 inches tall like me, you probably don't know what it's like up here. Everybody is a comedian when they meet you. They call you beanpole or ask, how's the weather up there? Or they tell you to watch out for low-flying planes. Not only that, they expect you to play basketball, which is definitely a mistake with me. So strong voice here and just kind of playful, like poking fun at themselves. You can start with a quotation. A lot of people like to do like a little epigram at the beginning, so a little quote to kind of introduce the main theme. So that's a good way to start. And just like taking a strong stance on something and having your voice come out is a great way to start. Also asking questions. So if you don't want to start in the middle of a story and you don't want to have a quote or something like that, asking a question obviously gets us thinking about it. So that's another great way to start. Next, we're going to look at just some reminders. So again, like I said, show us, don't tell us. So rather than saying, I had this unique feeling which made me want to win again, you can say, a sense of accomplishment grew with every handshake and pat on the back. Like I can totally picture those handshakes and how that feels. My face aches from grinning so much. I can totally feel that. So just putting in that kind of really intense imagery is really helpful for this type of writing. Try to avoid passive being verbs. So instead of saying it is, just get to the actual action verb. I find it difficult. So rather than saying it is not easy or it is not hard or it is whatever, you can put, instead of the is there, you want to just put the active verb. So that's always good to think about. Sometimes people pull out the thesaurus for this. This is not a thesaurus experience. You want to be more direct and personal, and we want to feel like who you are. And if you put in too fancy of words, like it may try and show that you're really intelligent, but I think you kind of miss like that feeling of like who you really are, which is the most important thing. So I would avoid getting out the thesaurus for this one. And then just want to briefly talk a little bit about gifts. The very last thing you talk about should feel like a little present. Like this is a little lesson about life, or like the biggest take home point about me, or maybe it's a parallel to the beginning story, or some kind of little present that provides closure. So examples, you can use quotes to kind of provide some closure and kind of have your voice come out referring on those quotes. You can just ending on a definitive main point. So coming to a full conclusion. A lot of times I like to refer to the future for my conclusions. And with stories, it makes sense to say, here's where I've been in the past, and I can't wait to get on your campus and do new things, or I can't wait to apply this in my future. And so helping them talking about your future tells them like the essay's over and now we can picture like you're still alive and wanting to hang out. You can play with sentence structures as ways to kind of provide some beauty or sophistication in your language. No limits, no obstacles, right? That kind of repetition creates that more powerful line. And like I said, projecting into the future is always good. So someday when this happens, you know, I'm gonna hopefully experience this and this and this, right? So these are just some ideas for beginning and continuing and ending your letters. Let's check out one more example, and we're going to evaluate it with the college application rubric here. So really quick, I just want to look at the rubric so you guys can see these are 100 points. So it's worth checking out. So the first thing is just that you have like a theme that's pretty clear. So the main idea or main theme should come out, like who you are, what qualities you have, what you learned, all that kind of stuff, whatever it is you're trying to focus on. The development should be narrative, right? So very descriptive. I should feel like you're showing me parts, and there should definitely be imagery in there. And your persona, like we want to picture who you are as a person. And it's not super academic, it's more personal, but it still should be appropriate, right? So keep that in mind with your persona, like who you are, but also still appropriate for them. And then language. So I want to see like vivid choices here. So really rich, personal, honest, distinctive. Be playful with the way you put things. Play with like your language choices and have fun with it. And then organization, again, like it's not like a typical kind of academic essay. It's a narrative. It's a story. So it should kind of progress, and you could be playful with how you organize things, and you could foreshadow, or you could, you know, put the story in and have some, you know, part of it described earlier, or, you know, you can be playful with the organization. So just kind of keep that in mind. The organization isn't a huge part of it. It's not like it has to have transitions or anything, but there should just be a flow, and the way it's presented should flow for us. And then conventions is just, you know, the usual grammar and punctuation, that kind of stuff. Okay, good. So let's check out this example. I want you guys to read through. This is the fly fishing example. If you just click into the agenda, it's the fly fishing example here. So take a minute to read it and just pause this video for a hot second and go read this example. It's right here. I'll go ahead and flow through it so you guys can kind of read as you watch if you want. Okay, good. So as we look at this example, what do we like about it? So I think it obviously, in terms of the rubric, it has top scores in all the parts. I can really get a feel for the persona of this person, like who they are. But a couple things like really stand out to me is making this essay really great. So in the very beginning, you get this kind of strong picture. He starts right in the middle of him fishing. So he doesn't start by saying, I caught this fish a long time ago. Instead, he describes it like right in the moment. So we get a couple lines like really picturing him fishing. And I love that he set this apart, like I remain hooked, like obviously a little pun there. So kind of playful and just a great line. And then we get into some background information. So then he gets there. So he doesn't start with the background information, which would be kind of boring. He actually kind of leads us in a little more with a better hook. And he describes that kind of background. He puts this line in here, when I was a toddler, my mom say I used to point and ask. And that's a great little like detail about his life. The fact that he has two moms is a great like little element of like who he is, and it kind of gets us a little closer to like who he is as a person. So I love that he included that, and you know, it's not the focus of the essay, but it's definitely like a little detail. And those are the kinds of things they don't know about you, so they just want to like hear like little details about who you are, and that helps you picture him. And then I also like how he talks about his reading history. A lot of colleges have their extra writing task be about like what you've been reading, what you've been watching, what you've been thinking about. So like the books you've read in the last few years, those kinds of things. They ask those kinds of questions. So him including this here is a great choice. The fact that you get a better picture of like who he is by like what he was reading then and what he's reading now, that kind of thing. He changed. And you can also see that he grew as a person. You also get to see a picture of him learning from other people. He has these mentors, and that's a great quality that he can take and learn from other people and get passionate about something. So this is a good example of a lot of qualities. I get a feel for the fact that he can go from someone who doesn't know anything about this to someone who's an expert on it. And then in this section, you really get a feel for how he's going to apply this to his actual passion in the future, and really growing as an adult to take his interest in this and actually apply it to the environment and environmental studies. So really cool kind of transition there. It's a good idea to include the kinds of stuff you want to do with your future, especially if you want to use this essay for scholarships and whatnot. And then he goes on to end it, and I like how he talks about how he's going to be leaving, you know, Fall Creek soon, and he's eager to swim into new streams. So again, I can totally picture him coming onto my college campus. So this would score, like I said, top marks for purpose, development, persona, language, organization, and conventions. This would definitely be an A range kind of essay for all those things. It's pretty adept at what it's doing. Okay, good. So today I want you guys to actually start drafting your letters. So if you need more examples, there's a bunch here from Johns Hopkins. They have a ton of great examples, and then there's another like link to even more examples. So if you're still kind of stuck on like what ideas you want to talk about, I recommend just reading more examples. They're short. They're, you know, under 100, under 600 words each, so they're short. So you can definitely read multiple ones and get a feel for the kinds of stuff you could do with this. And then next week, you guys will just be like revising and finalizing your drafts, and they're due on May 10th at midnight. If you have questions, please email me. I can totally look at what you've got so far, and I'm happy to give comments. I'm going to give comments on these so that you guys can use those comments later when you go to turn these in. So, or when you go to like actually use these in case you want to apply to college. Okay, that's all for today. Bye guys.